Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the day you're watching this new episode of Data-Driven Formula One. My name is Patrick Henz, and today I have the pleasure to present you a quite famous name in motorsports, Porsche. On the other hand, in Formula One, the success, it's, it's something bigger, sometimes smaller, and maybe in this episode, we can discuss a little bit what is the reason for that. So, welcome to the episode. Welcome to the show Porsche in Formula One. As you may know, Porsche is a family company at the end. It was founded by Ferdinand Porsche, who was an Austrian Bohemian German automotive engineer and founder of the Porsche AG. He is best known for creating the first gasoline electric hybrid vehicle, the Lohner Porsche, which we will see a little bit later today, the Volkswagen Beetle, of course, the Auto Union racing cars, and also, the company always supported other manufacturers in developing their cars. One of these examples is the Mercedes-Benz SS car. In this case, SS stands for Super Sport. And also other several important developments and Porsche automobiles. Porsche was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1906 and was named the car engineer of the century back in 1999. So born 1875, September in Maffarsberg, Bohemia, at that time part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and died 1951 in Stuttgart as it was part of West Germany. He had practically four nationalities. First, the Austrian-Hungarian one, then Czechoslovakia, as Bohemia became part of this country. And after this, became a citizen of the German Reich, German Empire, and at the end, part of West Germany. Ferdinand Porsche was born to Anna Porsche, his mother, and Anton Porsche, his father, in Maffarsdorf, now Vratislavice nad Nisou. I'm quite sure that I mispronounced this, sorry. In northern Bohemia, which was part of Austria-Hungary and is now part of the Czech Republic. He was a third child of his parents. His father worked as a master panel beater, which you can compare today to an auto body mechanic. If you're following our podcast, you know a lot of the drivers came from this background. But Porsche, in this case, never had been a driver, but always had been on the other side as an engineer, company leader. He had a strong interest in technology, especially electricity, from a young age. While helping his father in his mechanical shop during the day, he also attended night classes at the Imperial Polytechnical College in Reichenberg, now Liberec, about 5 kilometers from his hometown. Through a referral, he secured a job in the Bela Egger and Co. electrical company in Vienna, now ABB, and moved there in 1893 at the age of 18. This is quite interesting because we are at the beginning of the company. If we are speaking about actual days, so 25, it's like Porsche returning to the roots as they are. They are selling electric street cars. They are active in Formula E. And who's the main sponsor of Formula E Championship? You may know it, it's ABB. But after closing this circle, there's a long way for us to go, and that's why and where we are continuing. At the end of the 19th century, Porsche joined the Jakob Lohner company in Wien, a factory that made coaches for Emperor Franz Joseph I, the first of Austria, the king and emperor, and other monarchs from the UK, Sweden, and Romania. The company led by Jakob Lohner started producing cars in 1896 in Floridsdorf, a suburb across the Danube. The first car design, the Egger-Lohner vehicle, also known as the C2 Phaeton, was introduced in Vienna on June 26, 1898. The car you can see here on the right, so this is a hybrid gasoline electric, but is still quite a popular mixture today. And also Phaeton, the name would have been renewed, revived, taken out of the archive by Volkswagen, I think, in the 1990s, as their 12-cylinder sedan was called Phaeton. Up to 300 loaner Porsche had been sold until 1906, so quite impressive number. The car had been successful in motorsports events, reaching up a top speed of 16 km per hour. The loaner Porsche's design was studied by Boeing and NASA to create the Apollo's lunar roving vehicle. Many of its design principles were mirrored in the rover's design. As you may remember, the rover also is an electric vehicle. Fast forward. Again, it's a quite long story, and we are a Formula One podcast, so we want to focus on some of the topics. We are speaking of Gana Pogrevna, the co-host, which normally I am doing this podcast with, and my person, we always recommend you books. So if you're interested in the Porsche history, check out. I'm sure you find a number of interesting biographies. So fast forward April 1931. Porsche moves to Stuttgart and started his own consulting firm, the Dr. Ingenieur HCF Porsche GmbH, which focused on designing and consulting for motors and vehicles. And this is important, and this still shapes the company's approach up to today, because many times Porsche did not all in, speaking about Formula One at least, but they've been as an engineering partner, engine developer, and many times not being directly a sponsor. So they asked another company to pay for their services. The same would have been maybe the case with Red Bull, and maybe some of the reasons why the return, as announced for 2026, will not happen. And we will see this in this episode also. With financial support from his son-in-law, Austrian attorney Anton Pietsch, the Pietsch family, of course, famous as the owners of Volkswagen, and Adolf Rosenberger, Porsche was able to hire several former colleagues, including Karl Rabe, Erwin Kommender, Frank-Xavier Reimspieß, and his son Ferry Porsche. He founded the Hochleistungsmotor GmbH to develop racing cars. Hochleistungsmotor means high developing engines. In 1932, Auto Union, a merger of Audi, DKW, Horch, and Wanderer, met with Porsche, and this would have a lasting impact as Porsche developed practically a successful racing cars. At the 1933 Berlin Motor Show, German Chancellor Adolf Hitler announced his intention to motorize the nation, with every German owning either a car or a tractor in the future, and unveiled two new programs: the People's Car, which famously became the Volkswagen Beetle, and a state-sponsored motor racing program to support Mercedes-Benz develop a high-speed German automotive industry to compete with the successful Bugatti, Alfa Romeo, and Maserati. So practically the plan was to motorize the nation and use motorsport to present develop the country, and then internationally show the country's superiority on the racetrack. We discussed this also in other episodes. Same was used also by other governments, the Italian one, the Spanish one, and also Argentina later after World War II. Later, this program was extended to include Auto Union, which highly annoyed Mercedes-Benz and led to a strong competition between the two German auto manufacturers. Thanks to the governmental financing, Auto Union acquired Hochleistungsmotor GmbH, including their P-Wagon race car concept, which was a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car. Unfortunately, I don't have an image. Maybe if you look around in the internet, you find one. And then from this prototype, the original Porsche V16 was modified to a V12. Interesting, at that time, you may remember the famous quote by Enzo Ferrari: aerodynamics is for people who can't build engine. In opposite to this, the German manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz and also Auto Union, understood the importance of aerodynamics and already tested their cars in wind tunnel. And Porsche, together with Auto Union, Porsche for Auto Union, better said, developed the types A, B, and C. So here you see type C from 1937, driver Bernd Rosemeyer. Looks like the Avus. Photo I took from the German archive. So you see already here much earlier than Formula One and already mid-engine racing cars, something which in Formula One became successful only at the end of the 50s. Here we have another driver, Rudolf Hesse, in the Auto Union Type C. For high-speed tracks, as for example Avus, Monza, there had been special versions used with special aerodynamic concepts. And so here the Type C Stromlinie or Typ C Stromlinie, as you can see it, I would assume in the museum in Wolfsburg, if I'm correct. And here from an exposition in Japan, this is the later Auto Union Type C. This car now looks already quite similar to the early Formula One, which we then saw later also in the 1915 season, even though Auto Union, same as other German manufacturers, had not been participating. Now we are again a little bit forward after the war. This is Italian, very small Italian manufacturer and race car team commissioned Ferdinand Porsche, who just left a French prison, where he said, but he wasn't judged because it wasn't proven his relation to the German regime, besides being an entrepreneur and entrepreneur. Better said, of course, we can now question a little bit, even though if he was not directly member of the Nazi party, Nazi regime, of course he benefited. So this is, of course, a part which is up to discussion, but it's not part of today's episode. Saying this, Ferdinand Porsche left French prison and he was commissioned to develop in just 16 months in 1946 to 47 for Cis Italia, this car, the Cis Italia 360 GP, very similar to the approach he already developed for Auto Union, meaning mid-engine race car. If you're interested in the story of the 360 GP from Germany to Italy to Argentina, very interesting story indeed. We have a special episode just speaking about this car. So if you're interested, I highly recommend this episode. This Italia employed former Porsche engineer Robert Eberhard von Eberhorst, who developed the Auto Union Type D, together with Carlo Abbas and Rudolf Ruschka for the project. They all worked from Austria, a little bit challenging as we are here much before the frontiers had been fallen inside the European Union. So always the topics of customs made it quite challenging for the small manufacturers Cis Italia to develop. But again, if you're interested, see our episode. Base of the 360 GP had been the earlier Porsche designs, including an unraised flat 12 Auto Union car. It featured a 1.5-liter flat 12-cylinder engine and four-wheel drive to comply with actual Formula One regulations. Sorry, just one detail. As you see, the car was developed 1946-47. Remember, the Formula One championship started in 1950, but Formula One regulation existed already since the end of 46. That's why the car was developed complying with Formula One regulations, even if this was much before we had received the Formula One championship in 1950. 57. In the late 50s, Porsche participated with the 718, a two-seater sports car, which entered in Formula 2 races as rules permitted this. So we have a loophole, not Formula 1, but in Formula 2, you had been allowed, even with cars which not have been open-wheel racers. So that's why Porsche used this. Of course, they hadn't been able to really compete with the Formula One cars, at least not in the championship races where they participated in a starting field mixed Formula One and Formula Two. But of course, they gained experience, important for later participations, and of course also good for marketing. In 57, we had the official Porsche team with two drivers, Umberto Maglioli and Edgar Bas. They participated at the Formula One Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. The Nürburgring, the classic Nordschleife, very long racetrack, more than 20 kilometers. So they had the problems that maybe the spectators saw the cars like 4 times passing by. So a little bit boring, and to present a better show for the spectators, they decided that the Nürburgring Formula One cars had been also enabled to participate with Formula 2 cars, which helped Porsche to participate with this unique 7018. Besides the official Porsche race team, there had been the private team, the Écurie Marsbergen, I think from Luxembourg, with their driver Karel Godin de Beaufort. So Porsche participated at the Nürburgring, but they had not been entitled for Formula One points. There had been a special class for Formula 2 cars, so the successful drivers had been at the podium, but they not earned any kind of points. 58. Same as last year, Porsche participated at the Formula One championship only at the Nürburgring. The drivers had been Edgar Bars, the only driver. Interesting here, Edgar Bars had been an East German driver in the 50s and also later sportswomen from Eastern Germany received special visas so that they'd been allowed to participate also outside their country. Normally, for the normal citizens, it was not possible to travel to the western part of the world. If you are interested, we did a special episode only about East Germany in Formula One, about the drivers and about the East German racing teams, especially in 53, 54. If you're interested in this unique part of Formula One history, I highly recommend this episode. 59, now we had the racing team led by John Berra, the John Berra factory supported team, Berra Porsche, still participating with the 718 RS car and only at the German Grand Prix. Same applied for the US team Blanchard Automobile, which was practically the team of the driver Blanchard, also participating with a 1718 ARS car at the Nürburgring. 1960, based on the 1718, Porsche developed a Formula 2 car, the 1718 2, which you can see here. So now finally open wheel race car. Drivers had been East German Edgar Bars and Hans Hermann. And this time they had been, even if it's a Formula 2 car, they had been entitled for Formula 1 points, and Hans Hermann luckily won at least one point. Interesting, so here they already participated in various races, so not only in the Formula 2 at the Nürburgring. Interesting, both drivers should win later the 24 hours of Le Mans with Porsche. Hans Hermann in 1970 and Edgar Bars in 1977. And sorry, I think I must take this a little bit back. I think it was not Edgar Bars, but his son who won in 1977. 1961, so the Porsche updated its 787, and now the car, which you see here in red, really compliant with Formula 1 regulations. The team had been Porsche System Engineering, and they achieved 22 points, which enabled them becoming third in the Manufacturers' Championship. So you may say quite a successful year for Porsche. Drivers had been Joe Bonnier, Dan Gurney, their number one driver, who got 21 points in the fourth position, and Hans Hermann, who only participated in some few as a third driver, no points. So now you may say 3 plus 21 gives 24, but due to the regulations, in 61 only the best results had been used to calculate the final points for driver and team. So that's why Porsche only had 22 points for the championship at the end and not 24. Still participating with the older Porsche Formula 2, Karel Godin de Beaufort, and also here Hans Hermann had the opportunity to drive once for their team. 62, Porsche System Engineering, the racing team participating now with the Porsche 804, also based on Formula 1 regulations. Joe Bonnier, 3 points. Dan Gurney, 50 points. Fifth in the championship, so not that good as last year. But on the other hand, he gained the first victory at the French Grand Prix, so the first championship victory for a Porsche car. Also, Phil Hill could participate in some of the races, 14 points, sixth position. Besides this, Porsche had been used by the Karel Godin de Beaufort and the Scuderia Repubblica di Venezia, an Italian race team driver Nino Vaccarelli. These both private teams used older Porsche under Formula 2 regulations. Interesting side fact, the Porsche 804, as you see it here on the photos, had been designed by Ferdinand Alexander Porsche, the grandson of Ferdinand Porsche, the company founder. After 62, Porsche left officially Formula 1, and only the older cars, the 1718-2, had been continued to used by the Écurie Marsbergen with their driver, as always, Karel Godin de Beaufort, who even with this very old car had been able to get 2 points and due to disqualified later as 17th in the championship. Other driver had been Gerhard Mitter. Also, he 3 points, 12th in the championship. 64, again, still the Ecurie Maasbergen with Carol Gordini before, but now no luck for him. Fast forward, we're coming to the 1980s. Ron Dennis, leading, what was the team manager at McLaren, requested Porsche to undertake the development of a turbocharged engine to which the renewed automaker acquiesced. However, Porsche made it clear that they were disinclined to bear the associated expenses, and also they didn't want to have the Porsche name on the engine, as they not have been completely convinced that this would be a race-winning engine. Only around, I think, 2 or 3 later, we saw something like powered by Porsche on mentioned on the engine, as you see on the photo here. So this label, it wasn't there in the beginning, nor on the car, but only in later years, as Porsche was not paying the cost for developing this car, but have been a provider for TAC and wanted to stay away a little bit to be officially named. In Germany, in the 1980s, 70s, Formula One was not that a big name, as the German manufacturers, especially Porsche, had been focusing on endurance sports car racing, including, of course, with the highlight, the 24 hours of Le Mans. In response, Akram Oyc, head of the holding company TAC, forged a partnership with McLaren to provide the necessary funding for the engine project. So we have here the TAC engine engineered by Porsche. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo here to show you. At the late part of the season in 83, the McLaren Ford had been replaced with the McLaren Porsche, with the McLaren TAC. The first year, honestly, not very successful. From 7 races, only Lauda finished the South African GP on the 11th position. Why? You see here, McLaren driver John Watson had 22 points and Niki Lauda 12 points because before they switched to the McLaren TAC, they had been driven the McLaren Ford Cosworth engine, so all points had been still coming from the Ford engine. Then the big year, 1984, the McLaren MP4/2. McLaren won the championship. Niki Lauda with a half-point advantage before Alain Prost. So Niki Lauda won the championship. Interesting to know, both in generally both had not been that strong in the qualifying. This for the one reason, especially Niki Lauda focused to prepare the car for the race, with this also risking not having the best starting positions, and also TAC Porsche not provided a special qualifying engine, and this due to a limited budget, and this in opposite to the Honda engine and other engine manufacturers who provided special engines for the qualifying and then using different engine for the race. 85, McLaren MP4 2B, still McLaren TAC had been able to win the championship. This time Alain Prost first, Niki Lauda only on position 10 later with 14 points. John Watson, who replaced Lauda in some races. Niki Lauda would retire after this season, one for age, and to be honest, as you can see here, he won 1 race in the Netherlands, but retired 11 times. And one time not even able to start. Of course, this is not very motivating, especially if you had been already in a higher age for a racing driver as Lauda had been. So Niki Lauda, after this year, would retire from active motorsports, focusing on his airline, and of course, the high salary which he received from McLaren, he used for investing into his airline. 86 McLaren MP4 2C. Alain Prost won again the Drivers' Championship, but McLaren lost the Manufacturers' Championship. Maybe also because Keke Rosberg only achieved 20 points and came in as sixth in the championship. Rosberg not too happy at his time at McLaren, and also after this year would retire from motorsports. He have been replaced by Stefan Johansson, who also raced for Ferrari, I think the year before. Again, a second position for McLaren Tech, and also Alain Prost lost here the championship against Ayrton Senna. Fast forward, as Honda became the new engine manufacturer of Porsche. Porsche left Formula One, came back in 1901, and this was a comeback which they maybe would prefer to forget. That never happened. So in 1991, Porsche returned as an engine supplier, this time officially with their name, due to rumors, including by McLaren designer Alan Jenkins. The new double V6 engine had been based on a combined TAC V6 engine. So instead of 12 engine, practically they just combined the two V6 they had before. This is due to the rumor. Unfortunately, a lot of problems, lack of power, lack of reliability, too heavy. So Footwork switched back to Cosworth engine before the end of the year, because it was really, to be honest, a disaster. Nevertheless, you see here the car, the Footwork A11C on the top, and the later design, the FA12. The FA12, the car which originally had been designed for the Porsche engine. Drivers Michele Alboreto, Alex Caffi, and Stefan Johansson. All of them 0 points. In general, it was a smart move from Footwork to hire Stefan Johansson, as he had already experience with a Porsche engine. But again, this whole project has been a failure. So also this hadn't supported the team. Footwork, it's by the way, if you don't remember this company, it was a distributing company from Japan. I don't know if it still exists. I had been to Japan, but I cannot remember to have seen Footwork there. So maybe the company is not existing or changed the name. I'm not sure. Now, another fast forward, May 2, 2022, Volkswagen Group CEO Herbert Diess announced that Porsche and Audi would return to Formula One. This would be Audi's first entry into the sport. They had been there in pre-Formula One times with the Auto Union, but now first time Formula One for Audi, who acquired the Sauber team. So now this year, 25, it's still competing under Sauber. Next year, under the new regulation 26 as the official Sauber team. But then in July 27, in Morocco, it was officially announced that Porsche had acquired 50% of Red Bull's Formula One program, pending approval from antitrust authorities in up to 20 countries. However, the fierce delay in approving 26 engine regulation postpones Porsche's official entry at least due to information back in 22. Porsche had been taking activities. For example, in August 15, Porsche registered the F1 Nearly trademark, of course, meaning finally, in Germany, covering various activities and services. In September, Porsche confirmed that talks with Red Bull had ended without an agreement. Finally, in March 26, Porsche announced they would not join Formula One in 26. So at the end, they not acquired the mentioned stock of Red Bull's Formula One program. And that's the status today. No plans for Porsche to go back. So why this didn't work out? On the one hand, as mentioned, the regulations had been officially announced later than Porsche had hoped to. On the other hand, Red Bull, of course, had been well aware of Porsche's history in Formula One. Yes, high success, but also complete failure. And also saw that Porsche many times didn't go in 100%. And this may be some of the factors which not have been very attractive for Red Bull to align with Porsche. But in opposite to this, to go find a solution with Ford, where Ford will develop the official Red Bull engine. Due to my understanding, it will be officially a Red Bull engine, but engineered by Ford. So a little bit similar, maybe what Porsche did at the end with TAG at McLaren. As mentioned at the beginning, Porsche is active in various series, including Formula E. So it's practically what I did right in the beginning, competing with electric engine at the Formula One Championship, main sponsored by Austrian ABB. Also here, they entered 2019-22 season. Also interesting to see they are back together with TAG Heuer. So we have the official TAG Heuer Porsche Formula One team. The first 2 years, 3 years, not too successful, 8th, 7th in the championship. Then 22, 23, becoming better, 4th later in the championship. The best year, 23, 24, second with 332 points. And now we are still having the 24-25 championship, where actually beginning of March 25 status, they are third with 64 points. So that's the latest and greatest I can present you here. Maybe this changed when this podcast will be published. Okay, that's all, folks, for today's episode about Porsche. I hope you enjoyed speaking about this German engineering company slash manufacturer. If yes, if you did, please give it a like. YouTube, we are with videos on YouTube, YouTube Music, Spotify, where you can like, where you also can comment if you want. Also, if you have ideas about topics which you want me, or also hopefully when Gunnar comes back, us too, to talk about, you always can put in the comments. And if you are interested in the audio version, for example, you're listening to us while driving to work, school, wherever, you always find the audio version on the various podcast catchers. If you're into music and have Spotify, check out the mixtape. Here you find songs directly inspired by Formula One and inspired by the various drivers. Okay, that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed and join us the next time. Bye bye.